The morning Naomi Ellison walked into Hargrove Industries as an official intern, she told herself three things. Keep your head down. Do the work. Do not look at Cole Hargrove like you have already kissed him. She had already kissed him, and he had no idea who she was. Welcome to our channel, where we bring you emotional stories that stay with you. If you're new here, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss a story. And if you're returning, thank you. Your support means everything. Now stay until the end, drop a comment with your thoughts, and let's begin. Naomi's best friend Jade Washington had worked in HR at Hargrove Industries for 4 years. For years of lunch texts, late-night venting calls, and one very specific piece of information that Jade had repeated so many times it had become something close to gospel. Cole Hargrove does not mix business with anything personal. Ever. He made that rule himself after some drama with a senior partner years back. The man is a wall, Naomi, a beautiful, unavailable wall. Naomi had heard that so many times she could say it in her sleep. So when Jade invited her to the company Valentine's Day charity gala as her plus one, Naomi said yes without thinking twice. She was not an employee. She had submitted her internship application 3 weeks earlier and heard nothing back. As far as Hargrove Industries was concerned, Naomi Ellison did not exist yet. She wore a burgundy wrap dress she had owned for 2 years and told herself she was just going for the food. The gala was held on the 42nd floor of Hargrove Tower in downtown Houston. Floor-to-ceiling windows, the city below glittering like scattered coins. A live band played something soft and jazzy, and the smell of real food drifted from every corner of the room. Jade got pulled into a work conversation almost immediately, mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the room, and disappeared into a cluster of HR people. Naomi found herself near the windows, plate in hand, watching Houston at night, and thinking about how far she had come from the woman who lost everything 14 months ago. Her catering company, the one she built from scratch over 8 years in Dallas. Gone. Her business partner Marcus had drained every account, forged her signature on 3 loan agreements, and vanished somewhere she still did not know. She found out on a Thursday. By Sunday, she had moved back to Houston, into her mama's spare room, 34 years old and starting completely over. The Hargrove internship was not a backup plan. It was the only plan. You look like someone who came here for food and is now questioning every decision that led to this moment. She turned. The man standing next to her was tall, hazel-eyed, and looking at her with a kind of quiet amusement that meant he had been watching her expression for at least 30 seconds before he spoke. Dark suit, no tie, collar slightly open. He looked like someone who was supposed to be working the room, but had ended up in the same corner she had. "That obvious?" she said. The plate gave away. He nodded at her food. "You went back twice." She laughed before she could stop herself. The mac and cheese earned it. "It always does." He reached past her, picked up a fork from the serving table, lifted a piece directly from the chafing dish, and ate it standing right there with zero apology. "Yeah, that's good. You just ate from the serving dish." "I own the building," he said simply. She stared at him. He extended his hand. "Cole Hargrove." Her stomach dropped 6 floors. She shook his hand because her body kept moving even when her brain stopped completely. "Naomi," she said. Just Naomi. No last name. No context. He did not ask for more. He turned back to window. "So what do you do, Naomi?" She told him the version that was true without being complete, that she had run her own business, that she was in a transition period, that she was figuring out the next chapter. He listened the way people rarely listen, without looking for the pause where he could jump in. He asked real questions. He laughed at the right moments. They stood at that window for almost 2 hours while the party moved around them like water around 2 rocks. At some point the band slowed. The lights dimmed the way they do late in an evening when everyone has had enough champagne to feel soft around the edges. Jade had reappeared once, caught Naomi's eye, looked at Cole standing beside her, and visibly stopped breathing before backing away slowly. They drifted without meaning toward the small terrace door. Houston spread below them. The air was cool for February. Naomi crossed her arms against the chill, and Cole moved slightly closer, without saying anything about it. She did not know who moved first. She was not sure it mattered. One moment there was space between them. The next there was not. His hand came up slow, like he was giving her every opportunity to step back. She did not step back. The kiss was quiet and warm and over too quickly, and when they separated, neither of them said a single word for a long moment. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it, jaw tightening slightly. "I have to go back in." "Of course," she said. He looked at her one more time, like he wanted to say something and could not find the shape of it yet. Then he went back inside. Naomi stood on that terrace for 10 more minutes, city lights below her, fingers cold, heart doing something she did not have a name for yet. 3 weeks later, she got the internship offer. She took it. If you're feeling this story, hype it so others can find it. Comment where you're watching from. Now back to the story. The first day of orientation, Naomi arrived 20 minutes early. She found a seat in the middle of the conference room. Not the front where it looked like she was trying too hard, and not the back where it looked like she did not care. She set her notebook on the table, uncapped her pen, and kept her eyes forward. There were 11 other interns. Most of them looked like they had walked straight out of a graduate program. Fresh faces, expensive laptops, the kind of quiet confidence that comes from never having had to rebuild anything from scratch. Naomi was the oldest person in the room by at least 5 years, and she felt every single one of those years sitting in her spine. The HR coordinator, a warm woman named Beverly, walked them through the program structure, the expectations, the org chart. Naomi took notes. Real ones. The kind where you write down what matters and leave space in the margins for the things you figure out later. Then Beverly said, "And we're honored to have Mr. Hargrove himself come in and welcome this year's cohort." The door opened. Naomi's pen stopped moving. Cole walked in wearing a navy suit, hair slightly shorter than it had been at the gala, and he was already talking before he fully reached the front of the room. Something about the program, about what he looked for in people, about how the internship had produced some of his best current senior staff. He had not looked at her yet. She kept her eyes on her notebook. He was good at this, comfortable in front of people without performing for them. He spoke the way he had talked to her at the window that night, like the room was small and the conversation was real. She could hear the other interns leaning in. Then his eyes moved across the room the way a person's eyes do when they are making sure they are connecting with everyone and not just the front row. They landed on her. 1 second. 2. His expression did not change. Not even slightly. The sentence he was in the middle of continued without a single break, smooth as still water, and his eyes moved on to the next person. Naomi breathed again. She did not know whether to feel relieved or devastated. The answer, if she was being completely honest with herself, was both. The weeks that followed had a shape to them. Naomi was assigned to the Strategy and Development Division under a senior director named Paul Okafor, a sharp Nigerian-American man in his 40s who had zero patience for people who could not keep up and enormous respect for people who could. By the end of her second week, he had stopped explaining things twice. That was how she knew she had passed whatever test he ran on new people. She was good at the work. That part was never a problem. The problem was a Tuesday morning meeting where Cole sat at the head of the table, and she was 3 seats down, and she had to present the market analysis she had spent the previous weekend rebuilding, because the original numbers had a flaw. She caught 11 on a Friday night. She caught it. She fixed it. She presented it. Halfway through, Cole stopped her. "Slide 4, he said. "Walk me through the methodology on that projection." The room went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when everyone is deciding whether to watch or look at their laptops. Naomi walked him through it. Every step. Clean and clear and without apology. When she finished, Cole nodded once. "Good catch on the variance." "Who flagged that?" "I did," she said. "Friday night. I rebuilt the model over the weekend." Something moved across his face. It was quick, and she almost missed it. Then he said, "Good work," and moved on to the next agenda item. Paul caught her eye from across the table and gave her the smallest nod she had ever seen. That evening, Jade called. "My entire department is talking about you," Jade said the moment Naomi picked up. "You corrected the Billionaire's numbers in front of his whole board." It was a small room. "Naomi." It needed to be corrected. Jade was quiet for a moment. Does he know that you were at the gala? Naomi looked out her apartment window at the Houston skyline. Same city, different view. No. Are you going to tell him? She had thought about it, more than she wanted to admit. She had run the conversation in her head a dozen different ways, and every version of it ended the same, with her standing in his office explaining that she had kissed him before she became his employee and then taken the job anyway. And every version of that conversation ended with her walking back out of that office without a career. No, she said again. Jade exhaled. Okay, I hear you. Just be careful, Naomi. I'm always careful. You were not careful on that terrace in February. Naomi did not have an answer for that. She said good night and hung up and stood at her window for a long time thinking about the way Cole's eyes had moved across that orientation room and found her and kept going like she was just another face. She told herself that was exactly what she needed him to do. She told herself that all the way to sleep. Spring came to Houston the way it always did, fast and warm and without much warning. Naomi had been at Hargrove Industries for 2 months. She had found her rhythm. Early mornings, strong coffee from the place 2 blocks from the tower that made it right, her desk by the window in the strategy suite, Paul's voice carrying from his office whenever something needed fixing. She had stopped holding her breath every time Cole walked into a room. Almost. The internship cohort had thinned out some. 2 people left in the first month. 1 for competing offer. 1 for reasons nobody said out loud, but everyone understood. The remaining 10 had settled into the quiet competition of people who are all trying for the same small number of permanent positions at the end of the program. Naomi was not competing with them. She was competing with the version of herself that had let someone else hold the keys to everything she built. That was the only race she was running. She was in the middle of that thought one Wednesday afternoon when Beverly from HR appeared at the edge of the strategy suite. Naomi Ellison? She looked up. Mr. Hargrove would like to see you in his office. The room did not go quiet because nobody else was paying attention. But inside Naomi's chest something shifted and settled like furniture moving in a house during a small earthquake. She capped her pen, closed her laptop, stood up the way you stand up when you are making sure your legs will hold. Thank you, she said. I'll head up now. The elevator to the executive floor took 45 seconds. She counted. His assistant, a composed man named Derek, told her go right in. Cole's office was exactly what she would have expected, and nothing like what she had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows again, Houston sprawling in every direction below. A desk that was large but not showy. Bookshelf with actual books that looked actually read. No art on the walls except 1 photograph, large and black and white, of a man working under the hood of a car. She would find out later it was his father. Cole was standing at the window when she walked in. He turned when he heard the door. Close behind you, he said. She did. He did not sit. She did not sit. They stood on opposite sides of the room for a moment that felt longer than it was. And then he said, "How are you finding the program?" "Challenging," she said, "in the right ways." He nodded. "Paul says you're the strongest analytical mind he's had come through in 3 years. Paul doesn't say things he doesn't mean." "No," Cole said. "He doesn't." He moved away from the window, not toward her, just away from it, like he needed to not have that much light behind him. He stopped near the edge of his desk and looked at her with an expression she could not fully read. "I want to offer you a stretch assignment," he said. "There's a development project we're moving into the next phase on. Mixed use, 3rd Ward area. Community input has been a problem. We had 3 consultants fail to build any real trust with the residents there, and the project is stalling." She waited. "I think you could do it," he said. "You have a way of making people feel heard. I've watched how you work a room." Something about the way he said that made the back of her neck warm. "That would be a significant step up from my current placement," she said carefully. "Yes. Why me and not a senior staff member?" He looked at her directly. "Because the senior staff members who have tried have all walked in there like they were doing the community a favor. You wouldn't do that." She held his gaze. "You got that from 2 months of Tuesday meetings?" "I got that from the Friday night you rebuild a model nobody asked you to rebuild because it wasn't right. The room was very quiet. Naomi's heartbeat was doing something she needed it to stop doing. "I'll take it," she said. He nodded, started to turn back toward his desk. Then he stopped. She watched his shoulders settle in a particular way, like someone who has made a decision and is now living the half-second before they act on it. He turned back around. "Naomi," the way he said her name, just her name, the same way he had said it on the terrace, like it was something he was being careful with. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly." Her throat tightened. "Were you at the Valentine's Day gala?" The air in the room changed. She could feel her own pulse in her fingertips. Every version of this conversation she had rehearsed in her head over 2 months evaporated completely, and she was left with nothing but the truth sitting right there on her tongue with nowhere to go. "Yes," she said. Cole looked at her for a long moment. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were not angry. They were something else, something more complicated than anger. "I thought so," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure. I kept telling myself I was wrong." "Cole, you never told me your last name that night." "No," she said. "I didn't. And 3 weeks later you started here." "Yes." He turned away from her, walked back to the window. Houston sat out there completely indifferent to what was happening on the 42nd floor. "Why didn't you say anything?" His voice was even, controlled, the voice of a man who had spent years learning to keep the temperature out of what he said. Naomi looked at his back, at the set of his shoulders, at the city behind him. "Because I needed this job," she said, "and I knew that if I told you, I wouldn't have it anymore." He said nothing. "And because Jade told me about your rule. For years she told me, and I believed it. So I told myself the kiss was just a moment, that it didn't mean anything to you, that the professional thing, the smart thing, was to come in and do the work and act like it never happened." He still did not turn around. "Was I wrong?" she asked. The silence stretched long enough that she started to believe she had her answer. Then he turned around, and his face had changed completely. The expression on Cole Hargrove's face was not what she expected. It was not professional distance. It was not the carefully managed neutrality she had watched him wear in every meeting, every boardroom, every moment in the 2 months she had been inside his world. It was something unguarded, something that looked like it had been waiting a long time to be allowed out of the room and had been locked in. He crossed toward her slowly, not fast enough to alarm her, just steady, the way a man moves when he has finally stopped arguing with himself. He stopped close enough that she could see the gold threading through his hazel eyes. "That kiss on Valentine's Day," he said. His voice was low and even and completely serious. "I've replayed it every single day since." Naomi's chest hollowed out. She had imagined this moment. Not often, she told herself. Not obsessively, but in the quiet spaces. In the early mornings before the day started and she had her armor on, she had imagined what it would feel like to hear something like that from him. She had imagined it would feel simple. It did not feel simple. It felt like standing at the edge of something with no clear bottom and being asked to decide in real time whether to step forward or back. "You have a rule," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I do. Jade told me about it. She's told me about it for 4 years. It's a good rule," he said. "I made it for good reasons." "Then why are you standing this close to me right now?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because I've been standing on the other side of that rule for 2 months trying to convince myself it was enough. Watching you work. Watching you walk into rooms like you've already decided you belong there. Watching you be brilliant and careful and completely unbothered by what anybody thinks." He paused. "And none of it has been enough." Naomi looked down at the floor, between them, at the small amount of space still separating them. She thought about her mama's spare room, about Marcus and the empty accounts, and the Thursdays she found out her whole life had been quietly taken apart while she was busy trusting someone. She thought about how long it had taken her to trust her own instincts again. "Cole," she said, "I'm your intern. I know. I need this program. I need the reference. I need the path it opens. I can't afford to be a complication in somebody else's life right now. I've already been that. You're not a complication. You don't know that yet. Naomi. He said her name the same way he always did, like it required care. I'm not asking you to risk anything. I'm not asking you to do anything at all. I just needed you to know that I remember that night. Every part of it. And when you walked into that orientation room, I thought I was losing my mind. She looked up at him. I thought you didn't recognize me, she said. I recognized you in the first 3 seconds. Something moved through his expression. I spent the rest of that morning convincing myself I was wrong because the alternative was a problem I didn't know what to do with. She thought about sitting in that orientation room, about keeping her eyes on her notebook, about the relief and the devastation she had felt when his gaze moved past her. We were both pretending, she said quietly. Yes, for 2 months. Yes. She exhaled slowly, looked at the photograph on his wall. The man under the hood of the car. Is that your father? Cole glanced at it. Something in his face softened. Yeah, he had a shop in Cincinnati. Worked 6 days a week my whole childhood. Hands were always dark with grease no matter how much he scrubbed them. He paused. He's the one who taught me that a rule is only as good as the reason behind it. That you don't keep rules out of habit. You keep them because they still make sense. Naomi looked at him. Does your rule still make sense? He held her gaze. Ask me again in 6 months. It startled a laugh out of her, real and sudden and warm, and she watched his whole face change when she laughed, watched something loosen in him that had been held tight for a long time. 6 months, she repeated. You finish the program. You get the reference. You get everything this internship is supposed to give you. None of that changes. None of that gets complicated. He said it like a promise, like he had already turned it over many times, and this was a version he had landed on, and then we figure out what this is. And between now and then you take the third ward project, and you do what I already know you're going to do with it. She looked at him for a long moment, at the steadiness in him, at the way he's still like a man who was not trying to take anything from her, who was just standing in the same truth she was standing in and waiting to see what she would do with it. You're asking me to wait, she said. I'm asking us both to wait, he said. There's a difference. She thought about Jade, about the phone call she was going to have to make tonight, about her mama who would say something sharp and then something wise, and then ask if she wanted her to make a pot of sweet potato pie, because that was how her mama handled everything that required thinking. She thought about the terrace, the cool February air, the city below them, the kiss that had apparently been living in both of them for 2 months without either of them saying a word. Okay, she said. Cole nodded once, slow, like he was placing something fragile somewhere safe. Okay, he said back. She turned toward the door. Her hand was on the handle when he spoke again. Naomi. She looked back. For what it's worth, he said, the kiss was not just a moment. It was never just a moment. Not for me. She held that, let it settle, somewhere it would not get in the way of the work she still had to do. Then she opened the door and walked back out into the rest of her life. The third ward project changed everything and nothing at the same time. Naomi threw herself into it the way she threw herself into everything that mattered. She spent the first 2 weeks not presenting anything to anyone. She just showed up, community meetings at the recreation center on Tier Wester Street, Saturday mornings at the farmer's market on Alameda. She sat in folding chairs and drank bad coffee and listened to people who had watched their neighborhood get talked about by people in expensive suits for years without anything actually changing. She did not bring a presentation. She did not bring a laptop. She brought a notebook and a pen, and she wrote down what people said, and she looked at them when they said it. Miss Claudette, 71 years old, who had lived in the same house on Holman Street for 43 years and had watched 3 different development firms come through promising mixed-income housing and affordable retail and leave nothing behind but a rezoning notice and higher property taxes. Darius, 32, who ran an auto detailing shop out of converted garage and needed to know if the new development would price him out before he had finished paying off his equipment. The women from the church on Blodgett who organized the food pantry and needed to understand if the new foot traffic would help or hurt what they had already built. Naomi listened to all of it. She wrote it down. She went back to her apartment at night and sat at her kitchen table and figured out how the things these people needed intersected with what Hargrove Industries was trying to build. There was more intersection than the previous 3 consultants had found. She was not surprised by that. She was surprised by how much the community had already thought through. They did not need someone to tell them what was good for them. They needed someone to sit down long enough to find out what they had already figured out. By the end of the 3rd week, she had a framework. By the end of the 4th, she had something that looked like a real partnership proposal with specific commitments, specific community liaisons, a first right of return clause for longtime residents, and a dedicated retail incubator space reserved for existing neighborhood businesses. Paul looked at it for 20 minutes without speaking. Then he said, "How did you get Miss Claudette to sign on to this?" "I asked her what she needed, and I didn't argue with the answer." Paul looked at her over the top of his glasses. "You know this is going to board." "I know. You know Cole is going to present this." "I know that too." Paul set the document down. "You've been here 4 months, Naomi." "I know how long I've been here." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My mother grew up in 3rd Ward, 70s, before everything shifted." He picked up the document again. "She would have liked this." Naomi did not say anything. She just nodded and let that sit between them the way some things need to sit. The board presentation was on a Thursday morning. Naomi was not in the room for it. Interns did not attend board meetings. She sat at her desk in the strategy suite and worked on something else and tried not to think about it. Her phone buzzed at 11:47. It was a text from a number she did not have saved but recognized immediately. It said they approved it. Every clause. Full community partnership model. Miss Claudette is going to be a paid liaison. She stared at her screen. Then another text came through. "You should be proud of this." She set her phone face down on her desk and pressed her fingers against her eyes and took 3 slow breaths and did not cry, which she considered a significant personal achievement. Jade called at lunch. "The entire company is talking about the 3rd Ward proposal." Jade said, "Beverly told me Paul has already submitted a recommendation for your permanent placement." "Naomi, a permanent placement. For months in. It's not confirmed yet." "It's going to be confirmed." "You know it's going to be confirmed." Naomi looked out the window at Houston. At the city, she had come back to with nothing but her mama's spare room and 1 application, and a decision to start over. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I think it might be." "And Cole." Jade's voice shifted. Careful, the way it got when she was asking the real question underneath the question. Naomi had told her everything after that office meeting. All of it. Jade had been silent for so long that Naomi thought the call had dropped. Then Jade had said, "I knew something happened at that gala. I knew it the second I saw your face." Now Naomi said, "We agreed to wait until the program ends. And I'm waiting." "Is he?" She thought about the text, about the way he had said her name in his office, about 2 months of Tuesday meetings and the specific discipline it took to be professional in the same room as someone you had kissed on a February rooftop under a Houston sky. "Yes," she said, "he is." The program ended on a Friday in late summer. Beverly gathered the remaining interns in the same conference room where orientation had been held 6 months earlier. Permanent placement offers were handed out in sealed envelopes, which Naomi thought was either very thoughtful or very dramatic, and she opened hers with steady hands and read it twice and felt something in her chest unlock like a door that had been stuck for a very long time. Senior Strategy Associate, Hargrove Industries, Houston, Texas. She called her mama from the parking garage. Her mama listened to the whole thing and then said, "Baby, I knew that before you left for that internship. I just didn't want to say it and jinx it. Mama, you want me to make a sweet potato pie?" "Yes," Naomi said. "I really do." Her mama laughed, warm and full, the laugh that had gotten Naomi through more hard things than she could count. "Come home Sunday. Bring your appetite." She was walking back through the lobby toward the elevator when she heard her name. Cole was standing near the far end of the lobby, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbow, looking like a man who had been waiting but was pretending he had just been passing through. She walked toward him. He looked at the envelope in her hand. Senior Strategy Associate, she said. Something moved across his face. Warm and real and completely unguarded. Paul fought for that title specifically. Wanted to make sure you came in at the right level. I'll have to thank him. He'll pretend it wasn't a big deal, and then be pleased that you noticed. She smiled. He smiled back, and it was the same smile from the terrace. The one she'd been carrying around for 6 months in the place. She kept things she was not ready to name yet. So, she said. So, he said, 6 months. 6 months, he confirmed. She looked at him, at the steadiness she had come to know over half a year of watching him lead and listen, and keep every promise he had made in that office without ever making it strange between them. He had given her exactly what he said he would give her. The work, the space, the path. Now, they were standing on the other side of it. There's a restaurant on the east side of town, he said. Small place. Good food. Nobody from the office goes there. Is that a coincidence? No, she laughed. He did too. And the lobby felt small and warm and full of 6 months of patience, finally being allowed to breathe. Tonight? She said. Tonight, he said. She nodded once. Slow, the way he had nodded in his office when she had said, okay, like placing something fragile. Somewhere would finally be safe. Then she stepped into the elevator and let the doors close and stood there alone for the 45 seconds it took to reach her floor, holding the envelope in one hand and 6 months of carefully kept feelings in the other, and she smiled at the closed elevator doors like a woman who had built everything she needed and was finally ready to want something more. What would you rate this story? Drop 0 to 10 in the comments right now. If this story moved you, hit subscribe for more emotional journeys every day. And if it truly touched your heart, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Every contribution, big or small, means the world. Ready for the next story? It's even more dramatic than this one. Click now. Thank you for being part of this journey.